Story time. Just because you have a condition like post-traumatic stress disorder or any other circumstance in your life that feels overwhelming, so engulfing that it interferes with your work, doesn't mean that you can't be super successful. When I was 15 years old, I was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder. And somehow, as you do in your 20s, you just push through. You push through school, you push through work, your first job, your second job, the career that you get after you get your degree, you push through. Slowly sacrificing your self-care, your mental health, because you know it's really hard for you to keep going and keep pretending that you don't need more time to yourself and more resources, like more nutrition than you're actually giving yourself. You just push, 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 push because gotta pay the bills, right? I actually would have kept going like that. But what happened for me was Canada's second largest child murder case landed on my desk. Went to my boss and I said, look, I have had PTSD my whole life, and even though I'm professional, educated, fully trained family crisis worker for the government, I am able to write the pre-sentence report as I'm being asked to do. I do have PTSD. And I did have a depression, and I was actually off work for a little bit in this job because of that, because of the high caseloads that we already have that I know that I'm not going to be getting a break from. I'll just have to keep pushing, pushing, pushing harder than ever. So I went to my boss, and I actually loved my boss. And he's like, look, there's nothing I can do. This is the policy. If you say no, then you have to go off work and you'll have to fight it through the union, etc. It's like, oh my gosh, I can't do that. Right? My parents were both immigrants. And while my dad would have done anything to support me, and he showed me that in his life, and he did, I wasn't willing to make him work harder just to support me. So I was like, I got to do this. I have no choice. So I did. I pushed and I pushed and I pushed. I didn't get one break in my caseload. I kept pushing, pushing, pushing. Case was on the news every single night, so the pressure was super high to get it right. I was flown to Canada's highest security penitentiary to interview the murderer for 2 days. Jodie Foster much. Stopped going to the gym. I stopped basically taking care of myself. I'm eating Jamaican patties at the convenience store right beside my office just because whatever I can shove in my mouth while I'm getting this work done. And I'm gaining weight. I had to go to the big girl store. Okay, I'll survive. It's the early 2000s. Plus size isn't popular, but somehow I'll make it through. The case ended. I thought, okay, I did it. It was 2 years. 2 years later, staying in my office till 10 o'clock at night, pushing, pushing, pushing because there was a retrial, all of this extra work. 2 years later, and what happens when our bodies are in adrenaline mode for a very long time is you can push, 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 push. But what a lot of people don't know, and this is what happened to me, and I had to learn it the hard way, is the effects show up after everything calms down. I get home, I get into my bed after the case is all over. I'm like, oh, thank gosh. I can just relax. I can just get back to work. I can just get back to business as usual. I'll just have a few nights of really good sleep and I'll make it back. No, that did not happen. A nervous system collapse. My body was like, okay, now that we're out of adrenaline mode, we're going to go into freeze mode until we recover. We're going to make sure that you never, ever, ever do anything like that to us again. This is the body speaking. So I collapse. I go to my doctor. I'm like, I don't know what's going on with me, but I cannot function anymore. And he's like, you cannot return to that job. And I'm like, oh, yes, I can. I have to. Benefits, security. Parents were so proud of me. I basically got the job to make them proud of me. No way, I'm going back. And he's like, no, you're not. Yes, I am. And he's like, I can't force you, but please listen to me. Just try 2 weeks off. And I was like, okay, this is so humiliating. I'm not a person who wants to take disability leave. I'm humiliated. I didn't even really understand my PTSD diagnosis. It was just kind of something that happened in high school that was very traumatic and also very public on the news. What is with my life? Mamma mia, Gina. So I wasn't taking care of the PTSD. Obviously, I did have a little bit of counseling that was assigned by the court because the person who assaulted me ended up in prison, and they gave me, like, I think it was $1,500 back then to go to counseling. So I had a little bit, but PTSD takes a long time to heal. So it was flaring up and I had no idea. I needed a lot of healing. I needed to take time to me and heal. But $1 million question is, how do we do that when we need to keep working? Go to part 2.